everybody, I'm the Vintage Contessa, and this is...
Count de Monet, but Rob promotes works also. Hi.
Yes, we are here in our store in Houston, Texas, and we want to share about a division of our business that you might not know about. We buy and sell vintage estate jewelry. Not necessarily all branded, most of them are, but some of them are just great, amazing estate pieces that we buy from collections. Tell them a little bit about how we go about finding them.
Well, before I really got into this business from venture with my wife, I focused on Art Deco, Art Nouveau, period of jewelry. I loved it. It was great. It was super, super hot 20, 25 years ago. And it's a buyer's market, but it's a seller's market also. I mean, if I found a piece for $8,000, I could easily sell it sometimes for 10, 12, 15,000 wholesale, because people that knew it understood the value, the other people didn't. But it was such great quality, and there's a huge difference between a good piece and a great piece, and a lot of people couldn't tell the difference. So I used that technique or skill that I learned as a coin collector when I was younger, just to know the difference. Early French jewelry, early Deco jewelry is just as pretty on the back side as it is on the front side. And you learn to look for that stuff, and it was great. It helped be able to buy a house and, convince my wife to marry me. But the periods of jewelry are really neat. My favorite is Deco, and Deco is 1915 to 1935, more or less. Before that was Nouveau. Nouveau was like 1900 to 1915. Those are my two favorite periods. After that, you have this retro period, and the earlier stuff is strange. But I mean, some people like the Victorian, and strange is probably not a good word to use because I want to sell to everybody. But that's my personal preference of what I love. I've got a couple pieces that we'll show. I'll cut into the video and show you certain things that I really loved in the certain periods I liked. But a great piece of jewelry back then, Cartier just sold a Tutti Frutti bracelet. Online, the most expensive piece they've ever sold for over $1 million. That bracelet in the 50s was 30 grand. I mean, other than buying Amazon stock or Apple stock, or I don't know, maybe hitting oil in your property, and not recently oil, but old time oil. That's hard to make that kind of money.
And what we have found is some people are collectors and they go out and they search out these particular periods, but sometimes these are just items that people in your family had and you inherit. And maybe the look of the piece is not something that you love, but then we could help transform it into something. I think I've shared with you guys before, I inherited several pieces from my grandmother, Nana, who's from Beaumont. And they weren't pieces I would really wear, but at the time I really wanted a cross, and I took the pieces, the diamonds from her ring, and made it into a cross and wore it for probably 10 years of my life. And it was actually the cross we gave to Bella for her first communion. So what do we do when somebody brings in a piece that might not fit their personality, but that has meaning to them?
Very easy. We can take apart the jewelry and use the stones in a way that is good for the memory of their loved one that gave it to them, but yet we can make it into a style that they really want to wear and enjoy it, because a great heirloom that you inherit that sits in a safe deposit box doesn't do anybody any good. And if it's not something you're going to like, there's no reason to forcibly wear it. It doesn't work. So let's just transform it, make it into something new. I've even taken a couple diamonds before and put them on the inside of somebody's ring, because it's a man and he didn't want to wear diamonds, but he had his mother or his grandmother's ring. We just put a couple diamonds on the inside of the ring. That way when he wears it, he knows that they're there and thinks about them. The opportunities are endless. You can take an old wedding ring and make it into diamond earrings, or a pendant, make a brooch. I mean, you give us a picture, we can do it.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about diamond bracelets. What period would this piece be?
So this is Deco. This is the period I love, and you'll get to see more of it. Platinum, and then the stones set inside are aquamarine. Originally, I believe this piece had all diamonds in it, but it was very expensive for all these diamonds. And when we bought it, we took the diamonds that were out, the bigger stones they used for the family as heirlooms, and then we used the rest of it to make it as a more modern piece for someone to use, and a more portable piece. Danae's reaching in the back gracefully and trying not to knock over that stuff back there.
Timber! But we have a lot of great pieces that are estate pieces that were heirlooms for someone else's family that we've translated either by filling in, like these stones here we've maybe added a different stone to, but we also have settings for diamonds. If you are looking for a vintage diamond engagement ring, you could choose your own diamond. Why don't you tell a little bit about that journey of a diamond engagement ring?
So in the vintage diamond engagement rings, the older cut stones were a European cut usually, or even a Mayan cut stone versus the modern round brilliant. And the facet alignment is different and the math is different. It's, I always say it comes back to math. Well, the modern math on how you can cut a diamond, they've got computers and they figured out much more so than just using your eye and how it works. But like this ring here had a diamond in the center and the diamond had an issue, so we replaced it with a blue sapphire. You could do it with a ruby, you could do it with an emerald. This mounting itself is probably 1920, 1925. And we can rebuild them and repair them. And if there's a style you like, we can actually even remake them with the ability of using CAD programs, computer aided design. You can give me a picture and we can extrapolate that picture into a three-dimensional mold and then grow it using a grower out of wax or plastic essentially to be able to make the ring and do the mold. It's crazy. The technology we have now, you give us a picture, we can make anything. And if you want the real vintage, we have that also. But it's fun. I mean, it's exciting to me. This video, we could do this for 3 hours. I could talk nonstop. It'd even more fun if we had scotch or beer while we're doing it because...
well, they could be having scotch and beer at home.
But that's a good part. But let's talk more about tradition and my passion is watches. Mm-hmm. So I'm wearing a Breitling from the 1960s, a Navitimer. Watch looks no different than the 2020 version of it, except that the dial is a little different. The band is definitely different. They're much bigger now. But Breitling was, came around in 1884 as a company, and this watch, when it came out, this was a $150 watch, and now as a vintage one like this is probably $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. So if you bought quality back then and maintained it, you still have quality and value now. My favorite ad campaign I always bring up is Patek Philippe. Patek Philippe's been around since 1839. So this watch is a Calatrava from the 60s. Watch looks very similar to the modern ones now. This, when it came out in the 60s, was $250. Used now, these are pre-owned because it sounds better than used. This is a $10,000, $12,000 watch. New ones in gold at Patek start at $20,000. So quality, made you money, kept value, and their slogan, I didn't say it, is you don't own a Patek Philippe, you just take care of it for the next generation. So, I mean, it's brilliant, but it's true.
And a lot of these pieces do not come with specifically papers because they have been inherited or passed down, but we do give you a guarantee of the authenticity with any piece that you buy. You were mentioning earlier how we can customize things, but if it's a designer branded piece like a watch or something that truly is vintage, do you recommend customizing it?
On the sport watches, like say Rolex Daytona, okay? Iconic watch, this is 1970. Looks just like the 2020s that are out, well, a little different. They've changed up and they're a ooch bigger, about 2 millimeters bigger than they were back then. I wouldn't on a sport watch. This is not something I would keep this as original as possible. But if you were wearing a lady's two-tone or a man's two-tone and you wanted to put a diamond dial or put a different color face on it or a diamond bezel or replace the band, something like that, those aren't really collectible. The watches that are collectible are sports watches, are men's watches for 95% of the market. That's what's hot. You know?
And sometimes they have even more value if they were never repaired or never polished.
Okay, so here's a Rolex Submariner. This is 1962. This watch is unpolished, worn a few times. If you look at it closely, we'll show you, it's still got a little bit of the funk from the original owner, but it was just never, it was put away in perfect condition, and I bought it 25 years ago at least, because then again, before we were married assets, okay? Just making sure you all understand my collection before we got married. But watches like this, when this was new, this was $200 to $250. And some of these can trade for $40,000, $50,000, depending on condition. A beat up one is still worth $7,000 or $8,000. But gem ones, people say in our industry, the best is the best and the rest is the rest. The greatest, best condition watches are the ones that are always going to hold their value the most. You can still appreciate it and wear it a few times, but I wouldn't wear this hunting in the marsh down in, you know, Texas for ducks and stuff like that. Go, if you're gonna do that, wear yourself a modern watch. The vintage ones, wear them out to dinner, show them off to your friends if it means something to you, or you don't even have to. You know what's on your wrist. If this was your grandfather's and you know it, it's great. It's super cool. It works for now, and that's, I mean, I'm geeking out again. I love the vintage watches. And for men, what jewelry can we wear other than maybe a watch, your wedding ring, an occasional love bracelet, but there's not much else we can wear. Some guys, some athletes, we sell big diamond earrings to. I wouldn't get away with it, but I'm glad they do.
Taking us back on track, so I thought it was pretty interesting that on occasion Rolex or other brands would have like maybe a little bit of a step out where it wasn't as popular, so they only made a few, but then that style was really popular on the pre-owned market because they only made a few. Or some of the colors of the dials, the way they aged and they turned initially, that made it less valuable, but now if you have those, they're more valuable. How does that work?
So in the 70s, they made a Rolex Explorer. It looks like this. Actually, this is probably, no, these are gonna be like 84 to 89. The Explorer 2. See how this dial is white? There was a point where they made the dial and did it incorrect, and the dial turned cream. White dial watches worth $5,000. A cream one now is worth $20,000. And in the infinite wisdom I had in the late 80s and 90s, Rolex would let you send in that old dial, and they'd give you a brand new one for no charge. So everybody did it because we're going, why do we want this watch with an imperfection? The smart guys were the ones that, hey, this is going to be good, and that's ones that made the money. It also happened, I showed you guys on a video or two back how a Daytona dial, which is this, one of the sub-dials, went from black to chocolate brown, and that is good because it did that. There's all kinds of crazy idiosyncrasies of the watch business, and everybody has a flavor that they like. The market will bear what it's worth, and in auctions it's crazy. Some watch you see two side by side, one can bring 50,000 and one that's the same watch, same year, same everything, but just a little different discoloration on the dial can bring 5x or 10x. It's fascinating to me, fascinating. And that's why we have Wacky Watch Wednesdays, which we're going to talk about early Submariners this week.
And there are so many designer pieces, not just jewelry or watches, but even handbags that were worn by iconic women in art history. One of my favorite stories is the Kelly bag, Grace Kelly. She famously carried this Hermes bag in front of her pregnancy bump in the 1950s.
1954 is when the Kelly bag came out, so I'm thinking it was 54.
Yes.
This is not her actual bag, but you could tell your friends you thought you saw her actual bag on this video.
But the fact that something that she carried then is still stylish, still relevant, this is part of what we will help you in your journey to make a selection from us. We can guide you towards the things that have value, have significance, tell you about the fashion history with them. This bag specifically was one of the first Chanel, not again this particular bag, but this is called the 2.55. It was made with the Mademoiselle clasp, and it was designed in February of 1955. Still carried, still loved, still cherished.
And the vintage ones here, the new Chanel bags, most all of them have leather that runs through the chain. The original one did not have leather running through the chain. So on the 2.55, you'll never have leather running through the chain.
Exactly. And then tell them about the Alma. Who was the first Louis Vuitton bag made for?
Coco Chanel. In 1934, they made her an Alma bag. Alma also, just as a little side note, in Spanish means soul. I don't know if that was their thinking in French, but that's what it does mean. So this bag has some soul to it. But this is a much more modern. This bag is probably from the 90s, but still good, usable, great bag with the monogram, which is a waterproof canvas, and then the leather around it. Great, still good today as it was in 1934.
Yes, and this is the Jackie O Hobo. She carried this famously in the 60s. It was also designed in a different style by Hermes. This is Gucci. Gucci was one of the original Italian companies that's still around. We have toured the Gucci Museum in Florence and seen amazing things there. But we will give you our experience. When you come in and meet with us, or when you set up a virtual call, we can help you talk about the heritage of these products. So we're not just selling you something, but we're educating you on the process, letting you know why these pieces still have value, and helping you make a selection that you'll appreciate for generations to come, and maybe you can pass on to your child or to a family member for the future.
And I don't have much of a filter. If you're making a mistake, I'm going to tell you that, but personal taste is personal taste, and mine may not be what yours is, but I'll try to direct you in what I think is the right move. But I'm not always right, believe me, I'm told that often, but that's another story. That's marriage. Yes, hold on, I'm biting my lip. Back to watches, and we can go through it, and I love it. It's my passion. If there's stuff you want to trade, if we need to help you do restoration, what's the right way, the wrong way, we can do that. I can find vintage parts for stuff that you can't. Say you send certain watches to Rolex, they won't repair watches from the 60s and older right now. We still have access through all of our networks to do that, and I don't really want you to restore them the wrong way. We can replace parts. I don't want to polish on the vintage stuff and all that, but that's another topic we can get into more. But we can help you with the jewelry. It's just, I love it. It's my passion. This is all I've ever done. I haven't had a job. In college, I sold skis, but that was only so I could buy beer and buy more watches, and we're just going to call it beer because I did go to University of Colorado. Another story. But yeah, so let's, y'all come visit us.
Tune in on Mondays at 1 o'clock on Facebook Live at the Vintage Contessa. Also, tune in for our podcast on Thursdays. We have amazing guests living the authentic life, talking about how we know it's real, relationships, connection, collaboration. It's the way we've grown our business. We want to connect with you. We want to hear from you. Let us know what other videos you'd like to do. Check out more of our videos on YouTube, and absolutely tune in for our Wacky Watch Wednesdays.
Yes, we're whacking at the watches. Yes, that's my wife's tag phrase. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye.